All right, guys, we nearly had a massive malfunction there where you nearly didn't get a star, Jared, for this week because I almost forgot to press record. But Jerry, I can confirm we are recording. Are you there? Is everything okay? Are we good to go? Don't be doing the no, don't be pretending to freeze.
Yes, I am here. I'm ready to go, and we have a lot to talk about.
We doing this, and let's do it. It's time for Star Jared. All right, here we go. Star
Cheers! It's fucking
Star
Cheers!
Talking Star Wars, Jerry and
Cheers!
Yeah. Bit of a lag.
There.
Probably have to work on things a little bit, but but Jerry, I love it. You've joined in. Finally, we've got you because, ladies and gentlemen, a long time ago, we're pre-recording this on Saturday because Jerry's actually going away on a cruise next week. So it is a bit of a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Next time the Mandalorian airs, Jerry will be somewhere around Rome or Tuscany or thereabouts?
Yeah, somewhere about there, yeah, on a cruise ship. So
in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Two Jers, myself, and the one and only Jerry Soul convened every week to talk about the Mandalorian for the second last time. Jerry, it's getting real now. We're getting to the business end. Amazing stuff this week. Are you feeling the emotion? Is it starting to kind of kick in? Is it getting real? We're nearly done with Star Wars and we're nearly done with Mando for God knows how long.
For me, like, now this has been an emotional week for me because Mando this week was. You have to agree, it's the best episode of the season so far. Absolutely fantastic. One of the best episodes of Mando ever. I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's one of the best ever. But not only that, this week I was emotional over this, and then I'm even more emotional over Picard this week because, by Jesus, that was one of the best. 42 minutes, 43 minutes of Star Trek ever.
Yeah,
ever. Yeah. So this week has been emotional. But obviously the main thing we're here to talk about is Mando, and my God.
Yes, let's get to it because I know we've both been dying to discuss it, and also as well, we are going to talk about Picard. We've been watching it for the past few weeks as well, so we're getting to the finale. Like, by the time you next hear from us, both shows will have ended. We'll be absolute wrecks by the looks of things. But we're going to discuss both and tee up the finales for both. But before we do, a spoiler warning. So we're going to have all things Star Wars on the plot, and we're going to have all things Star Trek as well, particularly Next Generation, as we're going to be talking Picard too. All things Star Wars again, but the purpose of this is to enhance, not to particularly ruin any lore for you. So if you haven't watched the likes of Clone Wars, Rebels, if you haven't read the likes of Heir to the Empire or so on, they're kind of things that in particular you're probably going to hear about over the next while. But like I said, we're going to give you background. We're going to give you context. We're not going to get into specific plot points and ruin stuff so that you can still kind of watch these and kind of get the first time viewing experience if you like. But before we begin, we're going to start, as we always do, by recapping the episode that was. So we put ourselves back in the mind frame with our alt recap for chapter 23, The Spies. And somehow Moff Gideon has returned. We kick off The Spies with Gideon being briefly briefed by Elijah Kane about the Mandalorian Alliance. We see the Shadow Council. Could they have picked a more bad guy name, by the way, if they tried? Meet and promise that somehow Grand Admiral Thrawn will also return. It's like Thrawn in the Big Blue House. It's like, where is Thrawn? Where is Thrawn? In Navarro, Grief Karga plays a weird tribute to his dead friend IG-11 by reanimating his corpse to make a new toy for Grogu, who essentially became a mecha Daniel Bryan, just saying yes constantly. But I was here for it. I loved it. Bo-Katan looks for volunteers to scout on Mandalore before bringing the rest of the covert down. All the speaking characters volunteered, so at least one thing we knew is that Mandalore wasn't getting Death Starred, or else the show would be entirely fucked if it was. On Mandalore, they meet up with some old dudes who are like the Japanese soldiers that were found years later who didn't know World War II had ended. Look around, fellas, you lost. Over dinner, Bo tells a really depressing story. She is not a good dinner dinner guest, as we've seen beforehand. Like, we've seen Bo eat dinner twice. The first time she ate dinner, she's like, how do I eat? And the second time, she's like, let me tell you about how I surrendered the Darksaber to Moff Gideon and caused the purge of our entire civilization. Rounding it off by saying that Mandalore was too strong for any enemy to defeat, but their own division is what defeated them. Again, look around you, Bo. You sound like John Delaney asking if Ireland can be the 33rd team in the World Cup, pal. We're not. You lost, okay? You need to accept this, and you're not convincing anyone. En route to the Great Forge, they're ambushed by a cross between Jedi, Stormtroopers, and Mandalorians. Yes, that's right. They've got terrible aim, they can't take their helmets off, and they're not allowed to ride anyone. Amazing. We're going to call them the Mandalorians, and they retreated to be in what turns out to be a trap for Moff Gideon to capture Din, who may be making a trip to Ned Stark Drive of main characters who are abruptly stopped being main characters in their show. Gideon overwhelmed the covert with an attack, so Paz Vizsla took one for the team, taking them on by himself and actually defeating all the Mandalorians in a way that says, you know what, if the rest of them had just stayed, this probably would have been a fairly standard battle. But he didn't, they weren't, so he got killed by 3 Praetorian guards. R.I.P. Paz Vizsla. Father of Paz Vizsla leaves one kid behind. He's just probably going to get hoovered up by dragons non-stop now. Paz Vizsla, you died as you lived, an over-aggressive idiot. And that was the next chapter of The Mandalorian. Okay, maybe I'm not fully doing it justice there. But Jerry, last week, I know it was an episode that you and I enjoyed, but it was one that very much split the fan base. Chapter 23, is Mando back on track?
1,000,000% back on track, in the sense that it's back on track being good and adventurous and lots of action. Are we still on track to it being Mando's show again? No.
Okay.
I don't think so, because a lot of this episode still really wasn't about him. But we are absolutely on track, and I think obviously we're going to talk about it and we'll get to the ending, but I think the ending has really it could be huge implications for the future of the Mandalorian show. But a lot happened in this episode.
Let's parse it through. We'll talk through it step by step. I know we have to kind of hold our fire because there's so much to get through, but let's give it justice and let's go through each point step by step. Okay. Like for me, I think that this show got right back on track. And I think now it's like I said last week, we have this debate every year, but it just takes so long between series of Mandalorian and it goes by so quickly that we forget. There's the Adventure of the Week shows, and then they split people because they're not necessarily getting into the main storyline and the lore and giving us the nuggets and stuff like that as well. They're just fun sidetrack episodes, but that has been what Mando is since the start. But then when it gets to business time, they get down to business. And I wish, and maybe part of that is just because of the type of television cycle we're in, where we get so much content. And it also as well, instead of it being like, if you think back to Lost, for example, with Lost, it used to be a network TV show. With those type of shows, we get 24 episodes a year, and we get it every single year. The shows would be constantly filming, basically, like kind of the likes of CSI and so on are now. Now we get it less rarely, so we forget how to be fans of the show, and we forget what the tone of the show is. For me, this series, now that it's kind of coming together, if they can stick the landing last week, I'm like, yeah, this is just a series of The Mandalorian, and it's as I don't know if it's as good as season 2. I think season 2 was a spectacularly high point for the show, but that's okay. I think it's in the same ballpark and deserves to be spoken about in the same reverence as season 1 and 3. Has it felt a bit off at times? Yes, but again, we didn't have that overarching story that we've had since series 1, so they've kind of got to reshuffle. And maybe I think when we'll look back at it, season 3 will be that reshuffling part that kind of took us on course to, now we know from Star Wars Celebration that it's going to be like, right, it looks like we're getting two like this and one more series of Mandalorian, we're getting 2 series of Ahsoka, and then we're going into our big kind of Heir to the Empire style movie by Dave Filoni. We have a roadmap for where we're going, and this is just getting us from here to there. But if they get this right, then and they get next week right, then I think we're in a really good space. I think we can look back at this and look back at episodes like last week and go, that was just a fun side adventure because it was about to get fucking bleak. And let's get into that, okay? Because we started off meeting the Shadow Council. Moff Gideon seems to be kind of the main kind of protagonist now, but they're very much like, we were like, are we going to see Grand Admiral Thrawn at the end of it? Is it going to be like a little teaser like Thanos at the end of Avengers, like a post-credit thing where we just see him and everyone talks about him but we don't know who he is? No, they're mentioned. They're like, Grand Admiral Thrawn is coming back, motherfuckers. They're just saying it, saying the quiet part loud and kind of taking any kind of doubt off the table, which I love. And we know from the Ahsoka trailer that that's happening, so that's fine. But we did meet the likes of people who you'll recognize, even if you don't watch kind of the old TV shows. If you watch the sequel trilogy, you'll recognize the name Hooks. Obviously, not the Hooks that we know, Donald Gleason's character. Fans of the likes of the Tron books will recognize particularly Palian. Can you talk me through and give me some context as to who they are? And then kind of what your thoughts were on the Shadow Council. And feel free to theorize. Okay. We're in a free space.
Okay, well, I'll talk about the two of them first, and then we can talk about the council. Yeah. Obviously, Hooks. We know the name. As soon as we heard the name, even when you didn't hear the name, you look at him and going, he's kind of familiar, isn't he? The fact that Hooks, this Hooks is the father of General Hooks from the sequel trilogy. What I found very interesting, though, and I thought this was fantastic casting, that it was actually Donald Gleason's brother Brian who actually plays Hooks in the show. And that's why people are going, he does look familiar, doesn't he? That's the fact that they're brothers. Absolutely fantastic. Hooks is basically a guy who is into cloning. And as soon as you hear that, you realize, right, it's leading to the cloning of Snoke, and then ultimately the stuff with Palpatine in the return of Rise of Skywalker. So that's who basically Hooks is. Pelion is a character that I don't know too much about, but I know enough about to be very, very excited. Because as soon as I see him and the name was mentioned, I was like, I know this guy. And I had to do my little bit of research. Yeah. Captain Pelion is basically the right-hand man of Admiral Thrawn. And if you didn't know that from what he was saying, you know, all you have to do is have a look into books and stuff like that has Pelion in it. Pelion is the commander of Thrawn's fleet. And Thrawn's fleet was not small. It's not like Gideon's like light cruiser and a couple of things around it. No. Thrawn's fleet was fucking huge.
Army.
We're talking about dozens of Imperial class Star Destroyers. So this is not like a throwaway thing. This is like huge battle implications that we could potentially get down the line. Pelion is a fantastic character. And I think his casting, I don't actually know the guy's name, but he's been in loads of things. I remember him originally from 24. When he was in 24, he was one of the FBI agents 24. He was fantastic. He's such an arsehole in 24. And I can just imagine that Pelion is going to be an absolute bollocks throughout this whole thing. He's going to be absolutely fantastic. But in terms of the Shadow Council, there was a lot of Imperial warlords, is what they're being called there. But the Shadow Council was actually created a couple of years before that, around about the time of the Battle of Jakku. Obviously, we know Jakku from the sequel trilogy, but the Battle of Jakku happened over the course of a couple of books, the Aftermath books, which were fantastic books. If you have not read them, I would highly recommend it. The last one I believe it's called Empire's End. Now, that just kind of shows you exactly what happens. But it was a massive battle over Jakku between the Imperial Remnant, which had super Star Destroyers and a huge fleet, against the New Republic, which was when you're reading it, or actually reading it is great. And I love reading books, but when you listen to the audiobook, you get more of a visual in your mind when you're listening to audiobooks. And absolutely fantastic.
Star Wars audiobooks in particular, I really recommend, because they start with the Star Wars music, they play the characters. You have the Tron audiobooks I read over the past couple of years, I really recommend them, because you have Lars Mikkelsen. You've got the Thrawn voicing it, and it really adds to it. Like, again, I usually read the book and then listen to the audiobook if you're going back to it. But this, I'd very much like go with the audiobooks. They're brilliant.
Yeah. But in terms of obviously the Battle of Jakku, you've got two main kind of bad guys in it, which would have been oh God, now I've forgotten his name. Gallius Rex who was an admiral, and then there was Grand Admiral Sloan. So you'll kind of touch on that Grand Admiral. There weren't many Grand Admirals, and Sloan, she basically wanted to be the one to rule the Empire, but not a lot of people wanted her to rule the Empire. So that's where the Shadow Council came from, and all of these guys that were there during the Shadow Council on Mando, they're known as Imperial warlords. So it to the galaxy, they're making it look like, well, this is my part of the galaxy. I'm not going to give it up, and this is my part. But in actuality, they're all actually working together for a common purpose, and that's to bring the Empire back, Empire back, and their leader, their new leader, to be Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, this is somebody that me and you have talked about before, and it's somebody that I've really, really, really wanted to see in Star Wars because his characters are fantastic. He was amazing in Rebels. The fact we're getting Lars Mikkelsen again, absolutely brilliant. But the Shadow Council is there. You would have heard in the conversation that Gideon had with Hux about Project Necromancer.
Yes.
And if you just need that word necromancer, that is basically bringing the dead back to life. Mm-hmm. So we're talking that is leading directly to Palpatine.
Somehow.
They haven't said they're leading. Somehow Palpatine return.
We're gonna find out what that somehow means.
Yeah, exactly. When you see Gideon walk into the council chambers, you see vats behind him, and clearly those are cloning vats. The fact that those cloning vats are on a very particular planet leaves a lot to be, there's a lot of theories that you could go with on that. But obviously Gideon, he wanted reinforcements. He wanted Praetorian guards. The fact that Praetorian guards, last time we saw them was in Last Jedi, I believe.
Throne room battle.
Yeah. Which, I'm not the biggest lover of the Last Jedi, but that scene alone was fantastic. So to see Praetorian guards, or to even hear mention of them again, was fantastic. But the Shadow Council is something that the New Republic don't know about. They just believe that these warlords are working on their own. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly where they go, because eventually they're going to have to show their hand. And with Grand Admiral Thrawn coming back, it's all going to be working together. So is the New Republic, who are currently disarming, by the way, we found out a couple of episodes ago, what are they going to do? Because if they're disarming, they won't have a fleet to defend themselves. So how is this going to go? But great start to the episode. The Shadow Council was a great addition. Hux and Pellaeon were fantastic. And to just have Gideon back, I'm like, would have liked to see him a bit earlier in the series? Yes. But it's the fact I kind of understand where they're going with, because they packed so much into this episode that from start to finish, you're on the edge of your seat. Like literally, I'm sitting on the couch here behind me. I'm watching it, and I'm literally nudging my son, Killian. Oh, look! I'm like that for the whole fucking nearly 50 minutes. Like, I don't know how I didn't have an asthma attack. It's fucking unbelievable, absolutely brilliant. And this was the start. The fact that we knew at the very beginning that what was her name? At the very start, she's reporting to Gideon.
Oh, Elia Kane.
We knew that she was still an Imperial agent. We just knew. But now the fact that we have confirmation of it, and the name of the episode was Spies, and it's clear that she was a spy. But I think we have more to talk about there.
Yes,
but we'll leave that for later.
What I love as well is this was so rich, and I loved the flex of this scene because they just gave us so much in such a short space of time. And again, for anyone who is doubting, it's like, no, they know what they're doing. Trust Filoni and Favreau, they know what they're doing with this stuff. Like, there's so much depth to it. For example, like, you heard Gideon talk about Pershing, like, and just go like, oh, well, he's lost. But we know that Elia Kane is the reason that he's been mind flayed. And is Gideon working against some of the Shadow Council interests? Does he have, and again, kind of, we all assumed that it's going kind of vaguely in the same direction as we kind of spoke about pre-season, where we thought Gideon would be revealed to be working for Thrawn, but he's not. Like, Gideon is not necessarily, Gideon sees himself as the top of the pile here, but he also knows that he doesn't necessarily have the capital right now to be able to take over the group. So he needs to kind of build that capital. So is getting rid of Pershing and undermining Project Necromancer. We know obviously he won't ultimately be successful in doing that because we know where it goes. but is undermining that, a part of that. How does this spin off into the First Order? Where does it stop becoming about hell to the Empire, and where does it start becoming about, because we know some remnants exist, and I know there's some stuff out there, like we know how, for example, Hux dies, if you want to read into it and so on, and there's things you can parse out there that are available, but how they're going to tie the two together, we don't know that, and that's what's exciting. For anyone who doesn't know, though, and we can now sort of talk a bit about it, and I won't give away specific plot details, but I'll give you an overview. Who is Grand Admiral Thrawn? Why is he important, and how can you learn more about him? Thrawn is someone who, he's not like Palpatine. He's not like Vader. He's not a Sith. He's the understudy to. He was essentially second, like, in command after Vader, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? He would have been the second guy. What makes him scary is he's Chiss, which means he has kind of distinctive blue skin. They, similar to kind of Yoda's people, are a people that aren't very well known throughout the galaxy, although you can learn more about them through kind of looking into a lot of the Thrawn material that are out there. What makes Thrawn scary isn't that he doesn't have force powers, you know, but he is incredibly intellectual. He is the smartest person in the room. If you look at Moff Gideon and how calculating all he was, like Moff Gideon spelled out, and I rewatched it again just before we had the conversation. In this scene with the Shadow Council, Moff Gideon spelled out exactly what was going to happen at the end of the episode, and it happened step by step. He's like, we're going to need TIE interceptors. That's what they sent after the fleet. We're going to need the Dark Troopers, and we're going to need the Praetorian Guards. He knew A, B, C. That's kind of just setting you up for what Thrawn is. Thrawn is dangerous because he has that. I always go back to the Ted Lasso quote of "Be curious, not judgmental," and that is what Thrawn is and what makes him dangerous. He is curious about every kind of every species or every person or everyone that becomes within his crosshairs. He's not trying to eliminate them. He tries to learn about them. He tries to learn their nature so he can anticipate what they're going to do, and he can be 3 steps ahead. He's very similar in kind of, if he was a superhero, he'd be Batman. You know what I mean? Again, he doesn't have any powers, but he has this amazing intellect that he can figure out ways to become almost superpowered. And that makes him more dangerous because he's probably more intelligent than Palpatine. He's probably more intelligent than Vader. He can outthink them, and he is on a comparable level to them without having their natural raw talent. That's where Thrawn is dangerous. If you want to learn more about him, and you absolutely should do this anyway, watch Rebels. Please watch Rebels. You're going to watch Ahsoka. That is a sequel to Rebels. Watch Rebels over the next few months. If you want to learn more, and you will because he's an amazing character, when you're finished Rebels, there's there's actually 3 Thrawn series of books. One is the original books have been decanonized, and they were rewritten. They're all written by Timothy Zahn, who is an amazing. He, in the books Star Wars universe, he is the Dave Filoni. You know, he's the guy that fills in the gaps in the middle, and he is amazing at what he does. And he's been doing this ever since kind of before even Disney took over, but Disney have kind of brought him into the fold now as well. The first one tells of his rise. What I recommend. I haven't read the originals. I know you have, Jerry, but I want to stick with what's canon just so I don't confuse myself.
Yeah,
I would recommend doing the audiobooks of the original trilogy first, and then go, and that tells of his rise throughout the Empire. So how he was basically just found on the planet as this weird little creature, and how he stepped up to be basically just behind Palpatine and Vader, and have so much command. And it ties in perfectly with Rebels, but doesn't ruin Rebels, because by the end of it, it gets 2 storylines in Rebels, but like there's parts of Rebels where he's not involved in the TV show, and it's like, oh, that's where he was, and that's what he was doing, and that's why that's important. And it really gives you an insight into who he is. And also it gives you an insight into a big question of, is he actually a villain? Or is there a double agent element here? Is there a grand plan here? You know, and we don't know. And that's part of it. And that's why Ahsoka could be fascinating. There's another trilogy, which is a prequel to that, which tells of the Chiss ascendancy, and tells of his, and gives you more information on his people and on the Chiss and stuff like that. Yeah. And what you learn through both of them is that he's kind of an outsider in both worlds. Everywhere he is, he's an outlier. He is too intellectually smart that everyone who encounters him finds him a threat. He's very different in the halls of the Empire, which, as we've seen, particularly in Andor, we've seen are filled with kind of humans, and there's an element of kind of, I don't know if you call it racism because it's different, but like there's prejudice and it's prejudice towards people of their kind. So he's different to them, and he's a threat, and he's also more intellectually smart. So people try and stop him throughout, and you almost root for him to kind of make it through the Empire because he's almost an underdog because he's so different and he's treated so harshly. But then in the Chiss, he has this curiosity to be on the outside world. He wants to go into the Empire and learn about the rest, whereas the Chiss don't necessarily have that. They just kind of need help and they need support. So again, fascinating character, amazing, but that's how you learn. Rebels and read the Tron books or listen to the audiobooks. Anyway, that's the perspective. Now let's get back to the episode. We saw IG-11 there. Weird tribute by Grief Karga. Again, Grief Karga showing that he's kind of like, Grief Karga as the High Magistrate is kind of like your sound uncle, do you know what I mean? Who's like, sure, fuck it, go on, what harm? You know what I mean? Like, means well, but also like has that childhood kind of curiosity about him and isn't necessarily like mature or wise or anything. Like, so his idea of paying tribute to IG-11 is, so like I said, repurpose his corpse, which again, I wouldn't want my corpse reanimated and turned into a robot, and then essentially turn Grogu into Robo Grogu. But what were your thoughts on kind of Robo Grogu? It's a lot easier to write than to say. What were your thoughts on how this is? This a good twist? Is this bad? Is this something we want to see more or less of?
The very first thing I thought of when I saw him was like, oh my god, it's Krang from the Turtles.
Yes,
Immediately thought it was Krang. I was like, fucking hell. And the fact as well, and I don't know whether you've seen this. There's been videos. I don't know, they might have been doctored or whatever, but I have to go back and watch the episode again. But the bit where what's the little guy who comes out, bad baby, no squeezy,
yes. Bad baby,
bad baby, no squeezy. But as he's walking away, he's like mumbling to himself, and people have picked up on that and goes, he says motherfucker. And I'm like, fucking hell, that's something that's mad to put in that episode. But when you see, obviously, Grogu goes into the IG-12, which is being known as not IG-11 anymore, IG-12. It basically it gives him a little bit of protection, I suppose, because just him and his little kind of like egg that he goes around in, it's he's shit. It's just apart from he's like, oh, I'll push you away, I'll push you with the Force. He is a bit shit in terms of that. So now he has something that he can walk, he can talk. Yes, yes, no, yes. The fact that he was fighting with Din over a bit of fruit, you know what I mean? It means that if he can fight with him, he will actually be able to fight with this suit. I thought it was a great little addition, something to give that more of a adventurous element to Grogu. But I also think not that Grogu's going to go out his own or anything like that, nothing like that. But I definitely think this will give him that little bit of independence. He is starting to get older now. We have seen kind of slight bits of, him talking and whatnot. The fact that he's going to be able to use it, yes or no. So obviously, he can only answer yes or no questions at the minute. But I definitely think we're going to see more from Grogu with this suit. He's not going to be like the little innocent baby anymore. This is like a baby with a gun. We don't want the baby to have a gun, but he's going to be absolutely badass with it.
It's like an American baby. It's like an American baby. That's called a spade a spade.
You said it. I didn't. You said I didn't.
I loved this. Because
it was great.
I think it answered a lot that we were missing Grogu and we were missing the cuteness and we were missing that. And again, this was just like, oh my god. And I remember when I was watching it originally, I was sitting here at my housemate, who it's not into Star Wars, was just making dinner in here, and I was literally like on the couch, like, oh, this is amazing. I'm like, if you weren't here, I'd be like, yes, this is class. It was so hard to just withhold myself. It was funny. I love this because it solves a lot of issues. First off, he communicates, but I don't think any of us want him to actually talk. I don't think we want to see the way we kind of saw Baby Groot, and then turn into teen Groot. You know, I don't think we want to see that with Grogu. You know, I'm sure one day we will, and he has to grow up someday, and he has to talk, and maybe they'll get it right if he communicates like Yoda did and so on, and maybe they will, but it's such a risk. We like him as the baby. So this way means he can communicate, and it gives him like kind of more functionality, but also as well for me, I had issues with how Grogu moves in Star Wars because he's a puppet. So when he flips, for example, it reminds me of, and there's good and bad to this. I kind of like the shitness of it because it reminds me of the original trilogies where they're just kind of playing around. They didn't have the tech to make it seamless, and it's like they still don't have the tech here. But also, like, I'm like, it is a bit shit. Like, it doesn't look real. It looks like you're just throwing a teddy across the room at someone, and then they all have to react. And it's just like, lads, there's so many millions gone into this project. So it solves that. It's weird, definitely strange, like to have IG-11. Like again, it raises like the way they treat droids, man, is problematic. But like, it solves a lot of issues. It's cute. I love them being like a little Daniel Bryan. Like, yes, no. I loved it. I loved the scene. It was one of the funniest scenes they've had in Star Wars ever, where they cut from him originally getting it, and then like he's walking through the market and he's just so happy that he's just like, yes. For no reason, he's just so happy with his new toy. We've all been that kid who's like, we've got a new toy, and that is all of us when we love a new toy. We're like, yes. So loved it. Big fan of Mecha Grogu. Also as well, we went back to Mandalore again. Not the first time we've been in Mandalore, but I thought as well, because of this episode being so important, I thought they piled the budget into this episode. So I thought Mandalore, more so than the first time we saw it, looked absolutely incredible. We got a lot of long shots, we got a lot of kind of perspective shots, and we got a lot of action on the kind of planet itself as well. So I love this, and we also got some insight into it on how the purge happened. Bo talking about how she actually did surrender to Moff Gideon, how he got the Darksaber. I don't know how this falls within Darksaber lore, because I think that messes up the whole, but you have to win it through battle, Elder Wand rules. So I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if that's a thing. But yeah, so what were your thoughts on kind of this, the return to Mandalore, before we kind of got into the battle scene element of it?
I 100% agree. Mandalore looked great. And the fact that obviously before we get to Mandalore, we have to bring the two rival factions together.
Yeah.
And it was very tense. It was very tense. Let's be perfectly honest about it. It was. The fact that yeah, I don't know her name in it, but Sasha Banks, basically, she was one of the ones that speaks, obviously.
Yeah.
She is somebody who's, she's not really sure. I don't think all of them are really sure. I think even the likes of Din and Bo, even they're not sure. They don't really know how this is actually going to go. But they were brought back together. The fact that all the Mandalorians, or as many Mandalorians as we have seen so far, are now together and they have a fleet, is good. Absolutely fantastic. Will that fleet still be around come the end of the season? We don't know. We will see. But the fleet, I thought it was absolutely fantastic when they left Grief Karga and they're going to Mandalore. The visual of all the ships rising up and then all of them in space was just fantastic. It really kind of brought me back to along the lines of, the fleet from Return of the Jedi before they go into hyperspace to attack the Death Star.
Yeah.
I was like, all of them together, that looked great. And then when they're over Mandalore, it looked absolutely fantastic.
Or what else? I think one of the few good things I liked from Rise of Skywalker, and it's not even from a conceptual standpoint, it's a purely visual standpoint, where everyone comes to help at the end. And like, it's visually magnificent. It's like, if they, like, you're watching it and you're like, if this story was good, I'd be bawling my eyes out right now. But it's not. So I just have to look. I've always
found that scene amazing, but a little bit overkill.
Yeah.
If they even had half of that fleet, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But there was so many. I'm like, right. They've been trying for 30 fucking years to get rebellion. All they've ever had is 5 lads and a shuttle. And now all of a sudden, all these people are coming to help.
Yeah.
A bit overkill, but was great. But then, obviously, they get to Mandalore. They take Bo's ship down, and visually stunning. Obviously, it's meant to look broken. It's meant to look like it's been destroyed. But there was a kind of a beauty to it as well, because they looked fantastic. The fact that they went down... they're obviously looking for the Great Forge.
Yeah.
You know, it's a thing where obviously that's where they're supposed to go, because that if you're going to reclaim Mandalore, that's the first port of call. That's where you need to go, because it was so important to the Mandalorians was the Great Forge. It's where their armor came from. So they that's where they needed to be, but obviously they had to find it first because the planet had been completely decimated, so they didn't really know what was going on. The fact then that they meet other Mandalorians that are there since the war, basically, was interesting. Because you said yourself, you didn't think anybody would still be alive on the planet.
Yeah.
You didn't think anything would still be there. But was that, is that intentional? Were they actually survivors? Are they something else? I don't know. I think I'm going to leave that speculation to the end.
Okay.
But the fact it was an interesting thing to see, and it wasn't, when you first see them, you think it's just 2 or 3 Mandalorians, but then you realize there's actually a lot of them on this. I don't kind of like a skiff type of thing that they had, which was interesting. You then get the fight between the 2 factions, and we knew this was coming. And the fact that Vizsla was the big bad, not the big bad, but the big guy to get in the fight. It was interesting, and the fact that it was the one and only actual proper outsider that stopped it.
Yeah.
In his no. I thought that was fantastic. If Bo-Katan had jumped in there, if Din had jumped in there, they'd have been fucking pushed aside, and the lads would have went and knocking the shit out of each other again. The fact that it was Grogu, and they were like, "Fine, we'll leave it. So we'll leave it."
Yeah.
And that
so
was that.
cute.
Yes, absolutely brilliant. When they get to obviously the Grey Forge, again another very, very visual, very stunning thing. You're looking at it going. It very much reminded me of The Hobbit, and when they're back in Erebor and they relight the forges in Erebor to try and tackle Smaug. And I'm like, that's all I want to see now. I want to see the fires burning, to see the forge relit and then making more armor. And then, of course, is when the ambush happens. And, this was the first proper bit of, let's be honest, it's the first proper bit of action we've had all season. Apart from the Mandalorians going and saving Grief Karga. Other than that, this was meaty. This was like, who the fuck are these guys? Like, what the hell is going on here? But again, this is something else, that there was some things very telling in it. Where they purposely led into this ambush. And that's what I'm thinking. That's what I have to get the creative juices flowing now, Jerry. I have to. Where they led to this ambush, or was it simply, oh, well, Moff Gideon knew that it would be the forge that they would go to? I don't think so. I think they were led there specifically because the Mandalorians that came down here with Bo-Katan and Din didn't know where the forge were. They were like, we need to find it. And all of a sudden, they come across a band of Mandalorians that, oh, well, we know where it is. Really? You just automatically know where it is, do you? Let's be honest, the name of this episode is called Spies. Plural. S at the end. Spies, more than one. We saw one at the start. We needed more than one. Now, there's been a lot of talk about who the other person or people could be. I definitely think a lot of people going on about the armor because she has horns. I think it's a red flag against. Yeah. I think it's an absolute red flag. It's a red herring. It's not her. I don't think it's her. She has taken the spies and brought them up to the ship. That's where the spies are. The spies are the Mandalorians they found on the planet. They've gone up. Is something going to happen to the armor? I hope not. I really do. I hope not. But I feel it could have been her. It could have been these Mandalorians. They're 5 Mandalorians, or it could have been nobody. The fact, though, I genuinely believe that it's these guys, because I don't want a heel turn from the the armor. I don't. Would I be surprised if it happened? No, because me and you have talked about this theory that she has, and in this episode she said she was a part of Death Watch. She was a part of Death Watch, but then Death Watch is no more. The fact that she's got the horns is really leading me to believe that she was part of Gar Saxon's army, which were the Imperial Loyalists. That she's now turned the corner. But I don't know. There's so many things. This could go so many different ways. So many different ways. But of course, that fight that we see between now, what are we calling them? Are they Dark Troopers? Are they Mando Troopers? What are we calling them?
I call them
We really know.
Mandalorians.
Midichlorians, okay.
Yeah, because they're not full Mandalorians. They're kind of mid.
Yeah. Well, we call them Midichlorians. But the Midichlorians, they were really they were attacked, and then they're like, right, let's chase them. Who's the one in the front chasing them? It's Din. And we saw what happened.
I started to get a vibe around this time, and it's mad. Like when Din started running ahead, and this is where I want to talk, and we can get into theories now because we're getting to the ending. I started to think when he was running ahead, I'm like, Din can die. Like Din absolutely can die in this. I don't know if I think he's going to, and I think they would have killed him in this episode if that was because they had him and they took him to the debriefing room. So again, like there's a hostage situation, and this has to be like how the season ends. But we're looking at it, and we kind of speculated that Bo could die and that Din would take back over last week. That was part of our theory. Now it can happen the other way, where Din can die and Bo can take over, because it feels like the season has been priming us for the idea that the series can go on without Din. Din has served his purpose. He's literally done everything he needs to do. His story is ending, so it's on the table here.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think?
No, I'm just going to say it now. He's not dying. Yeah. I don't think he's dying. But something else happened in this series, and it's going to happen to him. And I think the only reason we saw this particular thing in this series was to set up that it's going to happen to him.
Okay.
And that's the mind flare.
Oh, shit. Jerry, what have you done to me?
Gideon has Din Djarin.
Debriefing. Yeah.
Debriefing room.
Yeah.
They're going to use the mind flare on him, which means he's going to lose his memory. They're going to take his helmet off. They're going to mind flare him, and he's going to lose his memory. Now, if that means it could go one of two ways. If this happens, it's going to go one of two ways. Number one, he's going to lose his memory. He's going to be rescued, but he can't remember Grogu. He can't remember Bo. He can't remember anything. He can't even remember he's a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Or it could go along the lines of what you thought was going to happen in Bad Batch, and he's going to be turned, and he's going to work for Gideon.
Oh, I don't know if that's going to happen, because I still think that is going to be part of Bad Batch, and I don't think they're going to. I think and this is fresh off because I didn't know this theory coming in, and I love it. You're after blowing my mind a little bit. So reacting to that, the thing that immediately reminds me of, and again, without giving away too much details, is what happened to Kanan in Rebels, where, he had this heroic moment. It ended up costing him something, and he had to relearn things in a different way. I see that happening with Din. So Din's way no longer becomes the way, and this is how we see Pedro Pascal outside the helmet all the time. You know what I mean? This is why we've started to see the person who plays Din most of the time in the armor. We started to see him in the credits. That's like a thank you, because he's leaving, and now we're going to see Din without the helmet, because it's going to reset his way, and kind of just, he'll fall into line with. I don't think they'll fully do it, but I think there's going to be a memory loss incident or something like that he has to recover from. That's a really good show. I'm almost full certain that's what's going to happen. Any other thoughts on next week? What do you want? What do you expect? What are your theories? Where are we going?
There is something we haven't talked about about this episode. Really, we haven't talked about it, and that is the fact that they're going to the forge, and they see something happening in the distance. What the hell is going on? And it's the fucking ground moving.
Oh yeah.
And we finally, it wasn't an eye, it wasn't a tusk. We saw the fucking mythosaur. Now this was, I thought we were getting something along the lines of, remember the alligator from the first episode? The big alligator. So I thought we were getting something about that size. So when you actually see the fucking size of it, you're like, that is along the same lines, along the same size as those space whales. It's fucking huge. And you're looking at that going, that could probably take on the Star Destroyer. Probably take on the Star Destroyer. see, as soon as we saw it, the fact that we saw the mythosaur, the fact that Bo is the one who saw the mythosaur, not Din, the fact that she knows about it, she has the dark saber now, she is the rightful ruler of Mandalore. I think it's too much to ask that she's going to go and tame it in one single episode.
Yeah.
I think it's too much to ask.
I don't know.
Now, it might be a thing where this could be the original mythosaur. It doesn't have to be just a mythosaur. It could be the original mythosaur. Because let's be honest, it was in the waters. It was in the waters down deep in Mandalore. It could be a thing where this thing comes at them again, sees the dark saber and goes, I'm with her.
Yeah.
And then starts chomping the shit out of Imperials. I'd say we're probably going to get about an hour. I'd say that's what's going to happen. People have kind of been people have been talking about, like, is there somebody going to come to the rescue here?
Like Luke, are we talking? Ahsoka?
No. Well, people have been saying maybe Ahsoka could turn up, maybe Sabine could turn up, maybe Luke could turn up. Even people even saying maybe Boba could turn up. How do any of these people know this is going on? Nobody. Unless, well, Brief Car, yeah, but he would be the only one. But how is he going to know that it's gone bad? How is he again going to find somebody to help? We don't know.
Grief Karga could get Boba.
That's possible.
Does Boba know Sabine? No, the Boba wouldn't know Sabine.
No,
he definitely wouldn't. Is there any link from Boba to Ahsoka or Grief to Ahsoka?
No,
there's none.
No, none. So the only thing I'm thinking of is there's no help coming. Unless, right now, this is the only thing I can think of is it's not so much coming and helping them and defeating Gideon. It's coming and helping them escape.
Yeah.
Because that's why I see, I think I don't necessarily see them winning next week. I don't necessarily. This is not going to be. There is no happy ending coming.
Yeah, this is the end of Last Jedi. Like where, like I think I'm very worried about the fleet. Do you know when the Last Jedi ends and you've got the few remaining survivors basically scampering off? They didn't win, but they survived in a position they probably shouldn't have survived, and that's enough. So I think that's going to be similar. I do think we're getting Sabine next week and the reason I say that is because she fits. I don't know how it happens, but she fits, and they've shown us her. They've given us a look at her in Ahsoka.
I have something.
Okay.
Because if there was anybody who could possibly come and help, right? Let's say the armor warns the fleet, they get into a fight with the interceptors, but the interceptors are too much of them. What type of ship, what type of fighter is good enough to go up against interceptors? And that would be X-Wings. Correct? Yeah. Who has X-Wings?
Yeah.
And here is your connection. Here is your connection for people who come and help. You have Grief Karga. Okay? Grief Karga gets a distress call from the Mandalorians who are under attack from Imperial forces. He contacts your man with the X-Wing.
Yes!
And of course, name him. Come on, name him.
Zeb! Yeah. Yes, you did it. Oh, Rebels are coming back next week. It's happening. Jerry Soul confirmed on this podcast. Rebels are going to be all of them. Hera's going to be there. Kanan's going to be back.
No.
Oh, no, wait. No,
Calm down.
No. Chopper's going to be there. They're all going to be there. Ezra's just going to appear. It's all going to be solved. No, they're not going to do all of that.
I think we could have that New Republic base of Y-Wings and X-Wings come to help.
Holy shit. It's very only Mandalorian.
To help. Yeah. It's only to help. It's not to go and save the day and defeat Gideon, because I don't think that's happening. Gideon's only been in 2 episodes and he's not getting beat in 2 episodes. It's just not happening. It's not happening. He will escape. Or if it's a thing where the mythosaur helps them, fair enough, and then Gideon and the rest of the lads will leg it. Gideon is not dying. Gideon is not getting defeated in this episode. He has been absent from all but 2 episodes for this whole season. He will be in the next series. Because we have to get one more series. Yeah. And that's where he'll be beaten. Because he'll be beaten before Tron comes along.
Yeah. He's the final villain for the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
So, and then Tron is you thought you got away. Yeah. So I don't think we're seeing Tron next week, although it is in play because we've seen him, we've seen Flip. So you could get that. You could get a kind of Thanos style cutscene. That's still in play. I don't know if we're going to see it because I think Tron is Ahsoka's big bad. And I think he's more relevant there, unless we get a teaser at the end in the same way we got a teaser for Boba Fett at the end of season 2. I think that's where Tron is in play, but I don't think he's coming into the storyline for this.
We are getting an after credits scene.
Oh yeah, like we're getting a setup for Ahsoka, and we're getting a date, I'd say, for Ahsoka. Like we know August, but I'd say we're getting August 17th or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, I've kind of figured it out. I don't think they're just going to escape. Actually, I've changed my mind away from a Last Jedi style ending. Okay. I think they're going to win next week. But again, I think Gideon's going to get away. I don't think they're going to vanquish Gideon. In a very Star Wars style, there's 2 battles and they have 2 Deus Ex Machinas that can come in. So there's one on the ground and there's one in the air. That is as Star Wars as it gets, where you have the ground battle. Yeah, there you go. You have the Mythosaur, and then you have Zeb. Sabine is 100% because Zeb would call Sabine. Like, he's like, they're retaking Mandalore. You need to get on this shit. Very possible we see Ahsoka then. If that's the case, we could see Ahsoka getting out of it. You know what I mean? Imagine them just coming in, like the X-Wings all coming in, and you have Sabine and you have Ahsoka and you have and they're all in different ships, and you're like, oh man, they're so fucked. Because right now you have Moff Gideon's guys, they're going up to take out the fleet. So there is going to be an air battle, 100%. So yeah, we're definitely getting the New Republic Guard. I can't remember. It's Teva, I think it is. We're definitely getting Zeb. Oh man, I'm so excited. Oh, I'm so excited. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. Oh, I'm going to cry. I really hope my housemate isn't making dinner at the exact same time, because otherwise she will see me bawl my eyes out on the couch and it'll be very awkward.
Listen, this is what you need to do, okay? You need to take Wednesday off and watch it early.
Yeah.
That's what you need
man.
to do.
Oh, yeah, I might just never go back to work again because
see, I love how every Wednesday the last few weeks I've just gotten a 1-word bold capital letters Gary text message. I'm like, fuck off, I haven't watched it yet. Let wait until I finish work. and I think I'm going to get a Daniel Bryan style message on Wednesday going. So I think it's going to be big. Is it going to be a happy ending? No. Oh. I just feel it, because this is the reason why, right? And it's not a spoiler in any way, but the guy who is in Mando's armor, in Din Djarin's armor, the guy who wears the helmet 99% of the time, that it's not Pedro Pascal, has said, buckle yourself in. It's going to be absolutely amazing, and it's going to be heartbreaking. That's what he said.
Holy shit.
So this is not a happy ending. This is not like last season. It's not even the end of season 1 or even the end of Boba Fett. This is not going to go the way you think.
You're setting me with the Game of Thrones slides as well. I love it. Yeah. Okay, right. Something that I think might be in for a happy ending as we move on from Mando is Picard. I do want to discuss it real quickly. We won't obviously be able to get into the same depth as it, but I do want to touch on it. We will discuss the finale as well. So, latest episode of Picard. If you haven't seen it, tune out now. Thanks for listening. We will be going into spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Holy shit, the Enterprise is back. The Borg is back. Amazing stuff. I want to talk about Picard though in general, and kind of give my overall kind of thoughts on the show. So I won't go too in depth, but yeah, Picard has been an interesting project. I am not as big into Star Trek as I am Star Wars, but I did watch every weekday when I came home from school with my dad, who was a Trekkie back in the day, The Next Generation. Do I have the same level of knowledge or insight? Do I get every reference? No, because I was a kid. But then that turned into Voyager, and then that turned into Deep Space Nine as well. So I have watched a lot of it, and that's where I come from. And Picard is aimed solely at the likes of me, where it's like, as well, like superfans obviously, but they're going to watch all Star Trek content anyway, but it's aimed at getting the likes of me back in, because it's like, you want to see The Next Generation back. Remember how class that was? Season 1 I thought was very, very good. They centered it on a kind of Picard and Data plot, where they focused just on the two of them, and there was, like, you had Riker back, and you had some cameos. 7 and 9 has been a constant throughout all of this as well, who I absolutely love. Jerry Ryan still absolutely killing it. But season 1, like, I thought the plot lost its way a bit towards the end, but the core plot between Data and Picard and their connection, I thought that was excellent, and that stayed true throughout, and kind of left you with a good taste in your mouth. Season 2 was a detour. I thought it was a well-intentioned absolute mess. Again, I appreciated that they had ambition, and I don't like criticizing projects that have ambition and go for it but just fail. But again, they kind of were like, oh, we brought in some interesting new characters. What if we just build a show around them? And everyone's like, that's not what we're here for. We're here for the old characters. To the point that in the middle of season 2, they put out an ad for season 3 before season 2 had even ended. And they're like, season 3, we're rebooting this shit and we're getting everyone back and we're going to do the show that you want us to do. They punted in the middle of the season. And then you're literally watching the last few episodes like, none of this matters because I know that what's coming up in the end. But season 3 has delivered upon that in that they've just, again, is this a classic series of TV? And we may disagree somewhat on this. I don't think it necessarily is. I don't think it's necessarily art. It's more fan service, but it is glorious fan service. It is really good. It is what we're here for. It's what we want. It's like we just want one more round with these characters. And the story, again, it's not like the most amazing story. It's built around the core of it, the kind of the thing that binds them all together and brings them back together is Jean-Luc Picard finds out he has a son. And that's kind of where everything kind of comes in and so on. And it's interesting, and it's with Beverly Crusher as well. So and it's kind of a long lost a son that he never knew he had and so on. And then kind of everyone kind of gets back in together for one last adventure. And like it ended with the penultimate episode where they all get back on the Enterprise and you see them, all of them, in the fucking room, and it's so emotional. It's exactly as you remember it, but with it, they've got it so right. But the story leans in the direction which allows us to get fan service. So it's like, you know, they'll go the way which is like, yeah, you want Worf back, don't you? All right, here's how we're gonna get Worf back. You know, you want Data back, don't you? Yeah, here's how we're gonna get Data back. You want Geordi back, don't you? Yeah, here's how we're gonna, you know, and for that, it warms the heart. Again, is it amazing, fascinating, groundbreaking TV? No, it's not. Like, but it succeeds very well. It knows what it is. It knows what the audience wants, and it just gives it to us. And that's really heartwarming. It's really nice because it's like going to a convention and seeing that all the people that we loved the work as much as we did and loved being around each other as much as we know their characters do. And that's what makes it heartwarming. And that's what I love about it. I think the next episode, again, they just kind of like the story's been a bit all over the place. They're just like in episode 9, they're like, what's your favorite villain in Star Wars or Star Trek? If you could have one villain back to end the show, who would it be? And everyone's like, well, it's obviously the Borg. And they're like, I don't know how you're going to get that in because they've had nothing to do with it. And they're like, we'll just do it. We'll just give you the Borg. They're back because you love them and you want them. And I'm like, yeah, I do want them. So I don't care. Yeah, thank you. And I think that's the way it is. And like they're nailing it. And this season as well, like little things I've loved about it where they've just leaned into the fan service. Like previously, like I used to love the way that the Picard theme song for the first 2 series is excellent. But this season, they're just like, no, we're just going to do the Next Generation. And even the closing credits are at First Contact. That's just the closing credits for the First Contact as well. And you're just like, okay, yeah, just give it all to me. Your thoughts on Picard and heading into the final episode, where this is the end of the series, by the way. There's no season 4 coming out. This is the end.
Where do I start? To talk about seasons 1 and 2. It was very interesting to have Picard and some of the original crew back in the first series. Was it great? It was okay. Wasn't brilliant. The things that I'll point out was that Alex Kurtzman, obviously he wanted to try and do something that was for next gen fans. But he made a lot of mistakes along the way. One very noticeable one was the fact that he did the copy and paste fleet. And that's not what Star Trek is. Star Trek don't do copy and paste fleets when it comes to, especially Starfleet. So he kind of learned from that and go, right, well, we'll change that in the next series. So the next series, they didn't do a copy and paste fleet, but the story was everywhere. The story was all over the place. And as much as I liked having Q back, because Delancey is fucking amazing, it was all over the place. Now, the ending of that I thought was fantastic, absolutely brilliant, and the fact that we got that very heartwarming scene between Delancey and Patrick Stewart near the end was great. This season, I had a lot of expectations for this. It has met most of them. It's been action packed. A lot of people saying, "Oh, the Borg were just thrown into the end." If you really look at it, if you really, really go in depth from the very start of the show, there was hints about Borg all along. There was hints about these things all along. Not a huge amount of hints, but there was hints all along. What I think is they're going to suffer from is how do you explain, and they're not going to, this is the thing, it's not going to be explained, but how do you explain changelings and Borg working together? That's what I don't get. What I do get is you've got the little cameos that we've gotten. We got Tuvok for an episode, even though it wasn't really him. We've got the entire crew back together. And I don't mind saying this, dear, I don't mind saying this, but I love the D. The D is the best thing in the world. The best thing in the world. The D is big and beautiful. It's absolutely fantastic. When I saw that, when they're on the shuttle and they're going in, and you see the doors open, and I just knew. I had theorized last week. I talked to you know my friend Gordon. I theorized with Gordon. I said it's one of three ships. It's one of three ships in Hangar Bay 12 because they had been very specific when they said, "What about Hangar Bay 12?" No, it's fine. We'll get back to that. Like something in Hangar Bay 12. They need a ship. We knew what was happening here. Hangar Bay 12 opens up, and I was like, "It's one of three ships." I said it was leaning more towards. I knew it was a galaxy. Certainly, I knew it was a galaxy. I was like, I don't think it's going to be the Enterprise E, because the reason we haven't seen it, that we've only heard references of it, is because they actually don't have the rights to the Enterprise E for TV or for streaming. They only had the rights for the Enterprise E in movies. That's why you never saw the Enterprise E in the likes of Voyager or in Deep Space Nine, because they didn't have the rights to it, and they still don't. So that's why you didn't see it. So that's why we were like, we're not going to see the Enterprise E. You can have 20 million sovereigns all you want. Once you don't call it the Enterprise, that was fine. So that's just the way it was going to be. So it was going to be one of two ships for me. There was an episode of Voyager where it was kind of like timey-wimey. It's basically Voyager gets destroyed on a nice planet. You've got Ensign Kim and Chakotay are now in the future, and they try to save them. And the one person who goes after them, who's trying to save them, is Captain Geordi aboard the USS Challenger, which, of course, is a Galaxy-class ship. And I said, right, it's either that, and he's just been hiding it away in there, or the fact that we got, when you're on that space station, the Section 31, where all the secrets, and that's where they find data and all that, you see a panel, and it's a body, and you see it says James T. Kirk. So they have Kirk's body. So that was picked up on Viridian 3. So what else was on Viridian 3? Only the fucking saucer section of the Enterprise D. I'm like, that we're getting the Enterprise. I knew from the first episode that we were getting the Enterprise D, and I'll tell you why. It was one of the first things we see in the episode when Picard is looking up at this beautiful painted picture of the Enterprise D, and he says, "Oh, I think I'll give that to Geordi, because he thinks he's dying. He thinks, I'm not going to last that much longer. I'm going to give all my worldly possessions away. There's the Enterprise D picture. I'm going to give it to Geordi." Then we see him and Riker in the bar, and they're like, "Why is there so many Enterprise Ds?" And you're like, "What, the fat one? How fucking dare you, bitch? Don't be talking about my ship like that." I just knew we were getting the Enterprise D by the end of the show. I'm not even gonna lie. I shed a tear. It was beautiful. Same. When they stepped on the bridge, they brought the lights up. We had Mayel Barrett's voice as the computer. Come on, all of it. I don't get people like, "Oh, it's too much fan service." Fucking hook it to my veins. It was fucking spectacular. Then it comes out and it goes to warp. And it's not the new style warp, it's the old style warp. I'm like, absolutely, this series has just, it's been amazing. And I tell you why this series is the best series, because this is the one and only Star Trek show that has gotten into the top 10 streaming series. That's where it is right now. Top 10 streaming shows. You look at how many streaming shows there are out there and how many amazing ones are out there, and it's now in the top 10. Nice. That just goes to show you what they've done with this show. Terry Matalas has been going on and on and on about how he'd like to do another show, how he'd like to call it Star Trek Legacy, how he'd like to have people from Picard, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, all together in one show. I'm like, just give the man the keys, like you gave Filoni and Favreau the keys to Star Wars. Just do it, because you know it's going to be good. Alex Kurtzman, step aside, give it to Matalas, away you go. Next week, it's obviously they are going to save the day. Obviously, it's going to happen. It's a fairly serious situation. The entire now. I love how they kept saying the entire fleet. It's not the entire fleet, you mad bastard. What the hell is he talking about? It's only about 100 ships there. That's not the entire fleet. During the Dominion War, they had thousands of ships, so it's not the entire fleet. The entire, maybe the first fleet or the second fleet or the main fleet, whatever you want to call it. It's not the entire fleet. Don't be so fucking silly. But the entire fleet have effectively been assimilated. We've never seen that before. It was a lovely way to do it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic how they did it. I see this ending one of two ways. If you look back at the start of this series, it was very much, even though this is it's a next gen show, but it was very much tailor made for original series fans, and I'll explain why. We got the Titan, which is a Constitution class with a different fucking deflector dish. It's as simple as that. It's even called a Neo Constitution. So why would you put a Neo Constitution that was to do with the original series in a show about the next gen if you didn't want it to be a tailor made to original series thing? Then we have it that, Picard has a son. Where have we seen that before? Only the Rotha fucking can, Then we see they have to hide in a nebula for people who are fucking chasing them, that they want to blow them up and they want to get something off their ship. Oh, where have we seen that before? Oh, that was Rotha Khan as well. Then it was like, we have to steal this ship. Oh, where did we see that? The search for Spock. So a lot of this show has been tailor-made for the original series.
Nice.
But then you get in, you're like, right, we've given you like 60-70% original series and 30% next gen up until that last episode. That last episode that we just saw was 1,000,000% next generation. Next week is going to be 1,000,000% next generation. The Titan is now forgotten about, really. We are going to see what happens with the Titan, because obviously Seven and Raffi are still there. We lost somebody this week, and I was devastated because I'm looking going, he could have been the main character for a new show, and you killed him.
He was great.
Captain Shaw, even though he was a dick, he was brilliant. He kind of redeemed himself in the end. He saved them. He let them all escape. And then he says to Seven of Nine, he says her name. How that didn't bring a tear to her eye, I don't know. But it was absolutely brilliant. He will be sorely missed. He was a fantastic character. I'm hoping, Jesus, maybe some way, he's not dead. But he's dead.
I think so.
He's dead. But the way I see next week going, people have been looking. I found this very interesting online because I follow Terry Metalis on Twitter. And somebody was asking him when Jack went in the shuttle and he found the Borg ship. And it was a very different. You look at it and it's a Borg cube, but there seems to be something else around it, like more Borg components, more things. And some maybe a ship that's connected to a base or something like that. But they're in this cloud, and you think, well, it's like a nebula. And he said, "Is this like the nebula where the conduit was in Endgame, in Voyager Endgame?" And he said, "All I can tell you is it's not a nebula." Now, every week they have done little teaser videos. They put these little teaser videos out. I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but I know what it is. I know what that cloud is, or whatever it is. It's brilliant. That's all I will say. But I see this. I'm not gonna keep it much longer. I see this ending one of two ways. They will have to rescue Jack. They will have to. They will have to go and rescue Jack. One of them is going to die.
Who?
It's either going to be Jack or Picard.
Yeah, it's John Luke.
It has to be Picard. And the reason I say that is he brought the crew back together. He's back in the original D. He has to go save his son. But, let's be brutally honest about this. Patrick Stewart is in 83 now. 83, 84. He's not a young man. He can't do this forever. Have him go in there and save his son. And almost like the ending to Nemesis, where he goes in, he gets rid of Jack. He may rid the galaxy of the Borg once and for all. Let's be honest. We heard her voice. It was Alex Craigie. It was the actual fucking Borg queen. Sorry, not Alex. Alice Craigie from First Contact. She's back. He has to finish what he started. He has to actually do the Borg in.
Yeah.
This is the end. This is the end of the Borg for good. This is the death of Picard being a hero, saving his son. I did think, I was like, are they going to bring the D back only to destroy it? I don't think so. I don't think the D is getting destroyed. I think Picard is going to beam over. He's going to save his son. He's going to send his son back. He will be how the Borg end. You'll see the Enterprise D warping out of there, and
they've set up for they've kind of already set up, like they had a section of this season where Picard handed over the reins to Riker and he was the captain. So there was a passing of the guard there. So
yeah,
that makes
absolutely.
sense for, like, if the Enterprise D is to go on, or in theory, obviously they won't be continuing the series, but like for a nice ending, Riker takes over as the captain.
Yeah.
And,
so it makes sense though as well that the Borg Queen is, and then the Borg themselves are done. Because even without the Borg Queen, the Borg was still alive. You know, they were still had this the collective. It was still there. And we need to save the fleet. The collective needs to die, because then everyone on those ships go, oh, I'm not being controlled by the Borg anymore. That's what has to happen.
Nice.
The Borg have to die. The Queen has to die. Picard has to save his son. And that's how it has to be. Will I shed a tear? You bet your fucking will. Because it will be, this to me will be a better send-off. And I genuinely do believe this. I think this will be a better send-off for Picard than we got for Luke Skywalker.
Oh, wow. Well,
yeah.
It's not a high bar, to be honest. It's not a hugely high bar.
No, but I think we're going to need the tissues next week. Picard is gone. Picard is going to die next week. The crew are going to stick around and stay together. Where we go from here, I don't know. What I'm trying to figure out is, we were told by Tim Russ, who plays Tuvok. He said he's in 2 episodes. He's been in 1, so clearly he's going to be in the last episode. So he's going to be there. How are we going to see him? Are we going to see possibly a little cameo from Janeway? Are we going to see the new Voyager? Because Voyager is in the Fleet Museum, so we have to see Voyager A or B or whatever it is now. What are we going to see? How is it going to go? Are people going to come and help them? We don't know. All I know is it's going to be about 50 minutes to an hour. It's going to be absolutely action-packed. We are going to see Picard die. It is going to end the series. Will it lead to another show? I hope so, because they did announce that the next show coming out was going to be, they've obviously Discovery is finished. That's finishing up next year. They are going to have a new show that's set in the same era as Discovery, which is going to be Starfleet Academy. It's not doing anything for me immediately. I'm still going to watch it, of course, but it's not doing anything for me immediately. We need another show to take over from Picard. It has to be this show that they're talking about, Legacy, because all of the actors, all of the Next Gen actors have been tweeting about it, and Metalis has been tweeting about it. Give us another show. Give us something that incorporates all the crew together. Give us something different. Give us something new. Star Trek Legacy. It needs to happen. It's now in the top, as I said, it's on the top 10 streaming. So people are like, oh, okay, right. They want this show. They want these characters. They want to see what happens in this era. So it's the 2401. So it's the 25th century. We couldn't give a shit about the 32nd century. I don't care. I didn't like Discovery. I really didn't. I know I'm not gonna like Starfleet Academy, because it's not what I want.
Okay.
And do I always get what I want? No, obviously. But I would like to see Star Trek Legacy incorporate all these characters together. Okay. I think it would be great.
Okay, excellent. Jerry, it sounds like the next time we discuss, based off our predictions, we're going to both be traumatized and need to comfort and console each other. But it sounds like we're going to be amazingly entertained. High expectations, but also some foreboding as well. We're gonna cry quite a bit in between the next time. But anyway, look, Jerry, in the meantime, I hope you really enjoy your holiday. Can't wait to catch up with you on the other side. And thanks for joining us as always on Page 180.
Thank you very much.